From streets to systems, the infrastructure behind Africa's next football era. That's what we're going to talk about today. Now, before there were contracts, big contracts, before there were agents, great agents, before there were all the private jets, the Champions League nights, the fashion and luxury in dressing, there was, first of all, a ball. There was a football. Sometimes the ball was stitched up. Sometimes it was just plastic. Sometimes, just socks tied together. Sometimes bare feet, like in my case, for example, and leaves of bananas tied together. There was also a street. There was some sand. There was some red dust. There was even concrete. African football has always had talent. That's unquestionable. But talent alone is not a plan. There is this great narrative about African football that sounds very flattering. In fact, it is really flattering. But it comes with limitations to African football. You know what it says? They're just naturally talented. They're very physical. They're very strong. They can run. It's great praise. I like it. But it hides something important. Talent without structure is unpredictable. Talent with infrastructure, it's power, it's leverage, it's strength. Infrastructure and talent is strength. Today, we're asking a serious questions. Are we building pipelines? Are we celebrating exceptions? Because a miracle story inspires all of us, right? But a system changes history. A system is meant for longevity. Today, we're not talking about the next viral 17-year-old in African football. We're talking about what happens before the highlight reels. We're talking about what happens before the Instagram post. Because the future of African football will belong to the countries that treat youth development like an industry. Not just a gamble, like a business. This is BALLAFRICA. We will break down the system behind the superstars you see. How do they come about? In our first segment, we want to talk about, talent is everywhere in Africa. However, structure is not. There's talent everywhere, but structure is missing. We have the mythology. The barefoot kid from Conakry, the street baller from Kumasi in Ghana, the township dreamer from Angola, Luanda in Angola, the beach player from Bamako in Mali. And yes, that story is real. Like the greats of Didier Drogba of Côte d'Ivoire. Like the legendary Samuel Eto'o of Cameroon. And by the way, today is Samuel Eto'o's birthday. Happy birthday to you, the legend of Cameroon. Like the greats of JJ Okocha in Nigeria, great football skills, great dribbler, and soccer for those in North America. Natural talent, improvisation, fearlessness. But here's an uncomfortable truth. Talent, just one step away. Longevity requires structure. Let's talk about Génération Foot in Senegal. This is an academy built on a formal pipeline that links FC Metz, that links directly to FC Metz in France. That structure produced Sadio Mane. We'll talk about him a little bit, not by accident, but by design. That's development. Let's go to Ghana. We can talk about, the right to dream in Ghana. They produced Mohamed Kudus, now a great player in the Premier League with Tottenham. Kudus, we wish you quick recovery. We know you're injured. We want to see you back. Right to dream does something radical. They educate players academically alongside training because not everyone is going to excel and become the next superstar in soccer, in the game of football. So there is education. Every player deserves a future. The difference between a street legend and a global professional is the system. The system. Across Africa, talent is not rare. In Ibadan, in Bamenda, in Libreville, in Tunis, in Harare. You see technical quality even at the age of 12, 13, 14. That would surprise most professional scouts. But here is the gap. Between the ages of 14 and 21, That's where the players either enter a structured environment or disappear from any type of potential of elite pathways. Let's look at some systems that are working. So here we're going to talk about structured development models that produce results. I'll start with Egypt. Egypt has an approach of integrating academies into their national planning. Egypt's major clubs like Ali, Zamalek, they all operate with structured systems that have inbuilt academies attached to it. And this vertically starts from a U9 up to the first team. From these systems emerged players like Mohamed Aboutrika, Mohamed El-Neni, Mahmoud Trezeguet Hassan. Most recently, Egypt's youth national teams have benefited from player development inside organized club academies tied directly to senior competition. What makes the Egyptian model strong? Its centralized youth leagues, coach license pathways are expanded, the stronger federation competition, and oversight. The academy is not separate from the club. They are all a unit. There's growth together. It's the foundation of the club. Senegal, which I just mentioned. Here's a model where private academies align themselves with international sporting organizations. Senegal has built one of Africa's most hybrid models. From Génération Foot, as I said earlier, came Sadio Mane, Ismaïla Sarr, Pape Matar Sarr. These players didn't just emerge. They entered a structured partnership with FC Metz in France. That partnership included technical exchange, European exposure, contract structuring, medical standards alignment. We got to take care of the health of the players as well, even at that young age. Then, look at the Diambas Academy, co-founded by the great Patrick Vieira of Senegalese origin and the French goalkeeper Benoît Lama of Guyana origin. From that system, we've seen players emerge like Idrissa Gueye. This model blends private funding, international mentorship, and federation coordination. That's infrastructure layered with opportunity. Morocco, I want to go to Morocco, the Atlas Lions. They have a system of centralized federation structure. It's a strategy centralized by federation. The Mohammed VI Academy represents a centralized long-term planning. Players shaped through structured development pathways include Youssef Nasri, Yassef Aged, Azedine Unahi. But most importantly, Morocco aligned academy philosophy, national youth teams, senior team tactical identity. When Ashraf Hakimi and Sophia Amrabat plays, they reflect years of coordinated technical direction. That's alignment across age groups that helps the country. Nigeria follows an approach of explosive talent in a growing structure. Nigeria continues to produce elite strikers, Galatasaray's Victor Osimhen, Kelechi Iheanacho, Wilfred Ndidi, the legendary John Mikel Obi of Chelsea. Many emerge from academies such as United Strikers Academy, which is based out of Lagos, with a strong partnership with Wolfsburg in the Bundesliga, and Diamond Football Academy in Abia State, which is also a premier, highly organized and reputable football academy in Nigeria, famously known for nurturing top talent like AC Milan's and today Fulham's Samuel Chukwueze, and recently Uchenna Ogundu. Before they moved abroad, the opportunity for the Nigerian Football Federation is integration. They were integrated into a structure. If private academies, regional competitions, and national youth teams operate under a centralized data and licensing structure, Nigeria will arguably create the most scalable development system in Africa, and why not the world? The raw material is already elite. Now some polishing is needed. The next step needs cohesion and structure. Cameroon practices an approach of currently rebuilding development identities, meaning Cameroon's legacy includes, we're talking about academic kids like Samuel Eto'o, Rigobert Song, Jeremy Sorel Njita. Many rose through informal and semi-structured environment before international moves. Today, sustainable progress depends on the Fédération Camerounaise de Football formalizing academy accreditation and youth competitive structures. Top soccer academies in Cameroon, key to nurturing local talent for European leagues include the Boissons du Cameroun Academy, Africa Food Academy, the Young Sports Academy. These institutions provide intensive structure, training, with specialized focus on girls' development. For example, the Rai Football Academy and professional pathways. Without that structure, talent leaves early and the domestic leagues get weakened. With the structure, Cameroon could regain long-term competitive consistency and become the lion that used to roar. Côte d'Ivoire blends with a corporate and academy alignment. Côte d'Ivoire's ASEC Mimosa or ASEC Abidjan Academy produced Yaya Touré, Kolo Touré, Gervinho, Emmanuel Eboué. All of them except Yaya Touré went ahead to play for Arsenal Football Club. That academy operated with European partnerships and corporate backing. The Fédération Ivoirienne de Football can expand these models through standardized academy licensing, youth league structure, corporate sponsorship frameworks. When corporations see governance discipline, they invest sustainably. And the sustainability builds dynasties. Again, corporations invest where there is stability. Let me segue into our third part of it, which is the economics behind the pipeline of Youth Academy. Youth development is not charity. This is an industry and it's a business. It's asset creation. When players like Osimhen, Hakimi, or Mane transfer for tens of millions of dollars, solidarity payments and training compensation flows back to develop the clubs. If the documentation is clean, integrity, if registration systems are compliant, if governance is aligned, countries that treat youth development as economic infrastructure will gain. They will gain recurring revenue, negotiated leverage, domestic league credibility. Development is a competitive advantage. Let's talk about the money. Youth development isn't charity, it's economics. When academies succeed, transfer fees return to the local clubs. Solidarity, payments support grassroots programs. Agents invest more in scouting, more talent. Sponsors gain confidence because of the stability and trust. Look at how European leagues benefit from African developed players. France's 2018, world-class squad included players like African-rooted players like Kylian Mbappe, Cameroonian and Algerian of heritage. Paul Pogba, Guinean heritage. N'Golo Kante, Malian heritage. Yeah, we can argue if they were born or not on the African continent, but there are roots. Africa contributes enormously to global football. The question, though, is, are African federations maximizing their internal return? This is not nationalism. That's just strategy. A win-win-win-win-win strategy. Now, what about real development? What does that actually require? Let's be a little more specific. Real youth development programs require certified coaching education, sports science integration. It has to be part of that. There have to be some tracking of data, systems that will track data. There have to be structured competitive calendars that are very rigorous. and academic pathways for the kids. Now, here's a fun fact, and it's a very powerful one. Average age of Africa's population is 20 years old. The average age of Africa's population is 20 years old. The youngest continent in the world is Africa. This means Africa holds the largest long-term football participation base on the planet. No other continent has that demographic advantage except Africa. This is huge leverage, which means if youth development system mature, Africa doesn't just produce talent. Africa will own, dominate, and master talent. Demographics are destiny. If structure follows, there is leverage and power. The future of African football will not depend on discovering the next prodigy. It will not depend on building the next ecosystem, because miracles are unpredictable. However, infrastructure is repeatable. The countries that choose systems over stories will control the next era of global football. Africa should be at the forefront of the next era of global football. I'm Easily Say, this is Ball Africa. Until next time, build structures, protect potential, think generationally, keep your eyes on the system and your heart in the game. Ciao.